This is my brand new indoor growing space. I have upgraded my shelf this year. I really love the lights that I bought last year, so I have a few more in that box ready to open. Now, if you followed this process last year, you'll remember that I was growing in the dining room and that was way out of control. So this year I've upgraded to a shelving unit. It's similar in structure, but it can support much more weight per shelf, and the shelves are a little bit deeper too. So this unit here has shelves that are 4 feet long by about 18 inches deep. Let's go have a closer look. So the lights are turned off at the moment because they are really bright, but we'll turn them on in a second so you can have a closer look. These green trays that I'm using come from a company fairly close by. They're not your standard 10-20 trays. They are, I believe, 8 by 14. So that means that I can turn them and have them lengthwise in the shelf instead of the other way, and I can fit 5 of these trays in one 4-foot shelf. Those are my new lights that will open up in a second. This 4-foot shelving unit has 5 shelves, which means I can fit a total of 25 of those trays, which honestly is more than I have. So there'll be a couple of standard 10 by 20s on there as well. So it is currently mid-February, and that's pretty early generally to be starting a lot of seeds. But there's quite a bit going on my grow shelf already. These trays up here with the numbers, this is my fertilizer trial for a Master Gardener's course. If you watched me start these seeds, which I did in a previous video, you might remember that I started cilantro, but the week after I got sick and I neglected to come and check on them, and they sprouted in that time and got really leggy before I had the chance to grow them under lights. So I restarted with broccoli. So since this is a fertilizer trial, we have 3 distinctly different fertilizers along with a control group that I'm using with water only. And if that's something you guys are interested in hearing about, let me know, and I'll be sure to include that in a later video. Now down here is where it gets exciting, and let me turn on my lights. So the great thing about these lights in particular is they are all attached together, but I can turn them on and off individually. So these 2 up here are plugged into these 2 down here, which are then plugged into, can I take a moment to brag about my superb organization? And, oh yeah, we need to turn those on. 1, 2, there we go. We have Lysianthus Arena 3 Gold. Not fantastic germination, but I'm really still learning how to grow these. So there are 160 blocks in each of these cells, and if I get anywhere in the 80 to 100 per tray, then I will be happy with that. A little better germination on this tray, and they're just starting to put on a second set of leaves. Here are the snapdragons, which have just germinated as of yesterday, so they're just coming up now. And then we have the first tray of stock, which I did put some vermiculite on top. Hindsight, I should have done this with all of these, but I'll be doing that going forward. And this tray here is another horticulture assignment. This assignment is about calculating germination rate and then how to transplant properly into individual pots, and none of that is particularly challenging because I've done that so many times before. So in there we have gazania, teddy bear, sunflowers, and calendula. And yes, I know it is way too early to be starting these things, but these were seeds that I knew would germinate quickly so that I could get to the transplant stage before too long and then get the assignment finished. So as I turn it around now, you can see why I had these lights off before. But I've had these for a full year, and I have a second box of exactly the same ones that we're going to open up and get set up. This is exactly as it was shipped. I just opened it to make sure that nothing was obviously broken, and then I set it here to wait until I had a day to make this video. It does say fragile and handle with care, which is always good when you're dealing with lights. So before I got these, I had shop lights that I just picked up from the hardware store. The amount that I'm going to quote to you is in Canadian dollars. I don't think the American would be that different. There are, let's take this one out here. Now there are 2 light tubes in each of these. These are LED. So the shop lights that I had before, they used much more of a footprint. They were about 3 times as deep. Yeah, so these ones are quite, where's my other hand? These ones are quite thin. My other ones were about 3 times as deep, which means you didn't have as much space. The lights hung down further, so if your plants got tall, you didn't have as much space for them as you would with these. They're also significantly lighter. All right, here is LED shop lights. So these are technically shop lights as well. They are linkable. You can attach them to the ceiling too. They don't have to be attached with chains, but when you're using them to grow plants, the chains are really handy because you can adjust the height really quickly and easily as you go. So the shop lights we used to have were fluorescent T8 tubes. They work just fine. These ones are LEDs. So with the fluorescent tubes, I had to replace those about every 2 years. With these, they should theoretically last for way longer than that. Okay, there's the first two. I'm gonna get these other two out and then move the box. There's the bag with all the chains and all the hardware, perfect. So 2 of these are going right here underneath this shelf, and the other 2 are going right here under this one. So I have 5 shelves here, but I'll have 4 of them hooked up with grow lights, and really that's enough for me for right now. So some basic grow light information before I set these up, because when I was researching this, I think 3 years ago now, when I first bought my first set of lights, I found it really impossible to know which information was correct, and there was so much conflicting information out there from people recommending different sorts of lights. And after 3 years, this is what I can tell you. The expensive full spectrum grow lights versus the cheapest LED or fluorescent tubes you can find, if all you are doing is growing seedlings to put out in the garden, it doesn't matter what you get. These LED tubes right here were $115 on Amazon for this box, which contains 4 4-foot lights. So that's enough for 2 full shelves, which is 8 feet of grow light space. And for any home gardener, that is plenty. You can grow a ton of seedlings, and I like to use soil blocking because it saves so much space. 8 trays up there, those are all full of soil blocks. Each tray has 160. So 160 times 5, 800 soil blocks on one shelf. So with one box of these lights for $115, that is 1,600 plants. So $115 for a set of 4 lights, that's Canadian. Likely if you're in the US, it's going to be a little bit less. This shelving unit was not much more than that. It was around the $120 too. Now it's big and the box was big, so it had a $30 delivery charge on it, but the lights were free shipping. This was Amazon also. I have it just set on the ground right now, but it also comes with wheels so that you can move it around if that's something that you need. So let's get these things out of the bag. If we haven't met before, my name is Nicole. I am an Eastern Canadian market gardener, and I sell cut flowers and herbs at a couple of local farmers markets. We have a small yard. It's about 1/3 of an acre for the entire yard, not just my growing space. So my growing space is less than half that. And it is February, so it is freezing cold out. We are zone 6. Other than a few things happening in the greenhouse right now, we're not doing much outside in the garden. There. I just want these plugs facing in the same direction. So there's those. I'm going to have to move this. These little sticky tags are just for fungus gnats. We don't really have a fungus gnat problem, but I see them around from time to time. And yeah, look, so that's already caught one right there on the back. With a lot of moist soil around, for example, when you're starting seedlings, you know, a couple of fungus gnats here and there can turn into a problem really fast. So even if I don't see them, I like to have those sticky traps out when I'm planting, when I have seedlings around. There we go, that's the last one. I have 4 bags with chains and some S-hooks, lovely. Now I vaguely remember last year having to take pliers and open up some of these loops. I don't remember why. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm gonna set that there so I don't drop it. Okay, I see why, yeah. So there's an S-hook on the bottom to attach it to the light, which is attached on. I can't remove this. And then there is no open hook on the other end, but luckily I have some, so I'm going to go and grab those so that I don't have to take pliers and open these up, because that is a huge pain in the butt. There we go. So this is just another Amazon buy. I'm sure you could get this at the hardware store too, but so these are the ones that I have. They'll do just fine. These little spots here are flexible, so I can open that up. By the way, if this is something you're in the market for, I do have an Amazon affiliate account. So you can check the description of this video and find links to the shelves and the lights and some of my other favorite garden gear that I use regularly. Affiliate codes mean that if you buy them through that link, I'll earn a small commission, but it won't cost you anything extra. Using those links mean that I will get a small commission if you buy it through that link, but it won't cost you anything extra on top of your purchase. All right, I took a minute to get all of the chains and those annoying little fiddly bits out of the bag and onto that shelf where I'm going to need them. So I'm going to turn off those lights and get the new ones hooked up and in place. So here is where you attach the hooks, and I'm going to put this through this way, and it is just that easy. But then I need to grab one of my hooks, and I called these S hooks. I shouldn't really call them S hooks. And what I need to make sure is that I count so that I count the right number of links on the chain. I'm counting them to make sure that everything's at the same height and these lights don't end up hanging at an angle. But I'm going to put the top through first and flip it over. There. Now it's not all the way down there, but it's not at risk of falling down either. And I'm going to hang that from the shelf above. Then I'll do the same thing with the next one. If this looks like this is slightly awkward for me, it's because I am left-handed, and in order to not block the camera, I'm doing this with my right hand. It's hanging not quite level just because of this plug. Hopefully when I get it plugged in, it'll level out a bit. Oh, that's why that's not hanging level. My hook is not in the proper place. That's sort of better. So these lights are plugged into those lights. Those are plugged into my power bar. I'm going to undo those and plug them into the new lights. I just realized I said I'd turn those off and I didn't, but I will now. There we go. So these are now plugged into the new lights, and then the plugs for the new lights are on the other side, but that is not a problem because they're going to be plugged into those ones, which will be plugged into the power bar from the other side. Aha! We have light. Look at that. All right, so what I have done with these is I have deliberately set each of these shelves at a different height. And not just the shelves, but I've deliberately set the lights at a different height too, because you might have noticed how close these broccoli are to the light, and that is way too close. But it's easier to just change what shelf they're on rather than adjusting the lights all the time, which I can do, but only when I need to. No, that's right. That's right, this is wrong. There, okay. So the Lisianthus, and I'm going to turn them this way because I don't need the room right now. Yeah, those are much closer. I'm only turning these around because my labels are on this side. Doubellini white, Voyage 2 white, Arena 3 red, Voyage 2 pink, and this entire tray is Arena 3 gold. And I think I'll take the Snapdragons too. Yeah. There we go. All right, so these ones are a little better. Now this light is my highest, so these are going to go down there. These seedlings have basically been touching the light, and they are not burnt in the least. So that's another good point for the LED. They really seem to work, and the way you can tell they're working is that your seedlings are not stretched. They're nice and green, and they haven't gone too leggy, which means really, really tall and spindly and prone to falling over. These are not that at all, so that tells me that the lights, cheap as they are doing a great job. Okay, that light is a bit too high, so I'm going to lower that in a minute. But to sum up, because I've probably been rambling, you do not need fancy expensive grow lights if all you're doing is growing seedlings to plant out in your own garden. Those big expensive full spectrum red and blue lights, those are required if you're going to grow plants to the point where they're flowering or fruiting while still under the lights. Seedlings don't need any of that. These $115 shop lights, and that's for 4, remember, so that's just under $30 a piece. Now when I bought my old shop lights, the fixtures were almost $30, and then to buy 2 T8 fluorescent tubes to put in them was almost $20. So that's around $50 per unit, per shop light with the bulbs, and these run around $30, and I won't have to replace the lights. So what I am going to do, since those ones have been running for a year and these are brand new, is I need to find a light meter to download, because I've seen that that's a thing, and I'm going to measure the output and see if there's any difference between the older ones and the newer ones. So I'm going to clean up next, because I threw things everywhere. I have to do a little more rearranging because I want those sticky traps closer to my seedlings since I've rearranged them all. And then I'm going to go make some more soil blocks. So thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.